Oh, Brent, it's brilliant to be back for another episode of Pursuing the Perfect Pint podcast. So, what's on the agenda today for us to have a look forward to?
Well, episode 3, so we're moving right along, Danielle. I think what we'll do is we'll do a market update for everyone, just to what's going on in the world of malt and barley related items. And we've got some news around the brewers. The big brewers have given their Q3 financial results, so we'll delve into that a little bit. We'll provide a little bit of a testimonial from one of our sponsors for the Lisbon event, and related to that, we'll give a bit of a glimpse at some of the topics that we'll cover. We've got a speaker profile that we're going to share in that regard. And then we've got a story from Australia, which is really from our friends at Riordan Grain, and talking of how they got started in the world of grain handling and malting barley specifically. And their very first vessel, I did the calculation, that first vessel of Australian barley that shipped to China was the equivalent of 95 million pints. So you could think that there's got to be a perfect pint somewhere in there, I would think, given nearly 100 million
25 million pints.
95 million,
yeah.
500 mil pints of enjoyment in China. But a really good catch up with Jim and Mark from Riordan. So that's the lineup for episode number 3. So we just keep moving along. We hope every episode is, as we say with most of our events, it's the best one till the next one. And we always try to make minor improvements along the way, and have some fun doing it, I guess is the key thing.
So, Brent, Crisp, I'm assuming they're part of the Lisbon sponsorship?
Yep. Yeah, Crisp is a gold sponsor. They've been a long-time sponsor in that regard. And for Lisbon, March 24, 26, 2026, they're going to be a sponsor of one of the exclusive pub venue sites that we've got
The
selected.
pub night.
Pub night is, really is world famous. I think some people come to the event solely for that purpose, but I hope they pick up some insights along the way as well. But the pub night is a great way for people to get together in a much more informal way. So so we're really excited to have Chris continue the partnership. We've got more work to do, but excited about that and all the sponsors. So we'll share a little bit of Colin's thoughts on why it's important for Chris to be a sponsor.
Many deep philosophical problems have been solved in the pub night. So we can solve the malt and barley problems during the day and the world's problems in the night. And I suppose the biggest problems facing us at the moment is, I think, if we have a look at some of the results that have been released from the major brewers, and more disappointing news.
Yeah, I guess I keep telling people I'm an optimist, and I am by nature. It's just more difficult at the moment to be very optimistic. I've included Molson Coors in some of my analysis, but if you look at the 3 big brewers, ABI, Heineken, Carlsberg, they represent about 46% of the world's beer production, and collectively they're down roughly 2.5% year to date for 2025. So that's not good news. What's actually worse, in a sense, is their third quarter results are worse than the half year results, which is indicating to us that things aren't getting better, which I was hoping for. They're actually getting worse, and in Q3 declined, and that's unfortunate from that side. So that's the big news. I would say these are very important results because it's something that you can see. It's very tangible, and we were hoping for better news, but that didn't arrive.
It looks to me, Brent, looking at they're also not exactly taking on price, with that net revenue growth being less than inflation in some places. Yeah,
if you look back a year and a half or so, Danielle, brewers' revenues were growing at 5, 6, 7, 8%, and we see that's really dropped back. And really, what's happening, and you've seen this from some of the things that Heineken, as one example, has published, that they are very clear that they have taken price increases in the last 3 years. Those price increases have been higher than inflation, higher than the CPI. And their forecast going forward is that they will actually revert to price increases that are below CPI. So you kind of see it in their revenue figures already, that they aren't taking price increase. That will help from an affordability standpoint. The challenge, in a way, is it's just going to take time for that to filter through to consumers, where they they actually do have more disposable income, and then they can decide to spend that on a refreshing beer and do their own pursuit of the perfect pint. But I think that if I say we're in a seasonal slump as well, we don't grow beer in the Northern Hemisphere in Q4 or Q1 because the weather is against us. So we're really looking at Q2 2026.
And I think in the same week, we've seen Diageo's new CEO, Drastic Dave, as I see he's been called, to hopefully drive a turnaround for Diageo as they look to get out of this.
Yeah, which usually coincides with cost cutting, and we saw Heineken as well with some head office reduction in staff and so on. So this volume decline is not good from a malt supply standpoint, but there is a reaction, and brewers and distillers are making cost cutting efforts to offset this. And I guess in a way, everyone's waiting for things to improve economically, and with that, we would expect at some point we'll get to a growth level. Today, I would say step one is if we could just stop the bleeding and get to zero, that would be a win. And after that, we try to get some positive volume growth.
And how's that translating into what we're seeing on the barley side from a supply and demand perspective?
Yeah, well, if you think about prices, and that's important to brewers, prices had been declining. I think we see now that they've leveled off. Our view is we're in a very comfortable situation. So there's more than enough quality malting barley around the world to meet the needs. Even if we have a rebound, not going to be any problem. So we have an ample supply. Prices are leveling off a little bit. The one worrisome point, Danielle, is the price that we pay farmers for malting barley as opposed to feed barley is in some parts of the world is virtually zero. That we're basically not showing any value of malting barley to farmers around the world. That is a bit of a risk ahead to 2026 because farmers may decide that malting barley isn't worth the effort that has the extra effort that goes into it, and they could grow other crops or focus on feed barley, which is a watch out that we should be keeping in the back of our mind. When prices get into this structural space, it's not good for malting barley in the medium term.
And so what is your predictive model saying, Brent, about that?
Predictive model, we cover France, Canada, Australia, Argentina. I would say across the board for both malting barley and feed barley, the predictive model is universally saying that we're in a period where we're going to form a bottom and prices will be very much sideways. And as we get into early 20s, we would start to see a very gradual price increase, but very, very nominal. We have such a comfortable supply. It's almost impossible to think of any major upward price move. I think we're in a very much sideways pattern, but probably forming a short to medium term bottom in the market, and from there, just only minor upside risk on price.
Yeah, we need some sort of major shock to really alter that.
And it's not coming this year. We've got more than enough quality barley. Maybe if there's anything that could spark things, maybe the US-China trade deal, could that start to get the global economy moving? But this is going to take months. So unfortunately, it's November 2025, and really our real chance to see some meaningful turnaround is probably, as I said before, in Q2 of 26, just after the Lisbon conference.
There you are. And so what else do people have to look forward to, Brent? I think you've got the regional reports coming out. And if I remember correctly, if you're a subscriber, you get to pick one of your regional reports, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do. So we try to offer a few additional benefits to our journal subscribers. So once a year, we prepare these regional reports. I slice the world up into 7 pieces. So North and South America, Europe, and Western and Eastern Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia, Oceania. So I have these 7 reports. So once a year, we do a 3-year forecast for each of those markets, and allow our journal subscribers to select one of those. And of course, if they have interest in the other ones, we'll help make that happen as well. But it's, from back in the days, you remember, I always thought it was quite powerful when we were in the brewing side, Danielle. The 3-year plan is quite interesting because it does force you to get out of the day-to-day current mindset. And I think so you have to think about what would the drivers be for beer volume growth going forward, or a turnaround in whiskey production, which which would help malt demand as well. So as an exercise, I think it's good. So by going through that process, we share that with our client base, and hopefully they find some of it useful.
I mean, you're right, because as an industry, it's not something which turns on and off easily, if you're planting it or investing in capacity or anything like that. So I think having that 3-year view makes a big difference as you're
Yeah,
planning ahead.
it's there's different ways to say it, but you can kind of get lost in the weeds, or you can get lost in the details, and everyone can focus on go and just stare at the reports from the brewers' quarterly reports for Q3 and cry in their beer. But I guess
Yeah.
at some stage we got to think about the future, and I guess in one small way the regional reports do start to take a 3-year view, and we'll do it again next year, so it's just a cyclical thing.
And this is just a reminder, if anyone wants any more info on the RMI services, they can go to the website, have a look, and all sorts of additional services that are offered. But the one coming up soonest is obviously Lisbon in March next year, which feels like it's just around the corner. And I mean, on that note, we have the Crisp interview that you did as the gold sponsor.
Okay, well, next up on our list, we've got Colin from Crisp Malt joining us. So, Colin, thanks for taking a few moments to join and just capture a few of your thoughts.
No problem.
The first one, I guess, just from a Crisp Malt perspective, I was just curious to get your comments on what is it about the RMI conference that you like? What aspects of it do you see as valuable? And I guess most importantly, as a sponsor, what is it that is valuable to you when you think about participating in the event as a sponsor?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've been supporting on and off over the years, and I think for Crisp, it's the RMI conference is really the only one of its kind in the world. It's the only opportunity to bring the global malt community together, and as members of that community, it's hugely important that we're supporters of that. I think that's the main thing. It is about bringing people together. It's a small sector, and I think that when we have opportunities to have face-to-face conversations as competitors, it's one of a kind opportunity. So that's the most important thing for us. I actually only attended RMI for the first time myself in Rome, and I'd heard an awful lot about it, but I hadn't had the opportunity to go yet. And I was really blown away by that sense of community and that sense of kind of almost a sense of camaraderie, to be honest. We're kind of all in it together, and I think that's no more true than the current kind of situation that we're all in as an industry as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. I've had some people refer to it in a sense. RMI is kind of an institution within the industry, which we have a responsibility in a way to bring people together, and as we've said, Colin, I guess in one way your Rome benchmark is pretty high, so we have to make sure we not only meet but exceed that one, which is our goal as well. So with that in mind, we've got one. I guess it's a kind of a build on what we did in Rome. We had an exclusive pub location in Rome, and in fact for Lisbon, we've got 3 very closely located pub venues, and Crisp Malt has one of those dedicated to them. So we've got some ideas. We don't have to tell everyone about it, but maybe in early thoughts, what are you thinking about having a venue that you can kind of put your own flair around when it comes to Lisbon?
Yeah, well, it's always nice to have our own gaff to hang out at and welcome people into. Yeah, again, it's about that sense of community. So it's we're a British maltster. The pub tradition is alive and well, and having somewhere for people to come together and have some good conversations is what it's all about. We'll hopefully have some maybe have some whiskey on the go at that location as well, and let people try some different products from across Europe. So that's the intent anyway. Moving alcohol around Europe is always challenging, so I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver on that one. So, but that's certainly we might have to just raid duty free.
Yeah, well, it's a good teaser. There's some more details to work out, but I think there's a huge amount of potential to what we could do with that and the other sites. So, well, with that, Colin, thanks for taking a few moments, and really looking forward to to your second RMI experience in Lisbon, and by all accounts, it'll be as good or better than Rome. So that's the target. So thanks for
Well,
taking a few moments.
fingers crossed. No problem. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Cheers.
I think, it was interesting, Brayton, when you said you had Darren on the list to interview. I mean, I would say Darren is an industry lifer, right? I think, been around for quite some time, retiring. So was he sharing his unvarnished thoughts with you as he heads off into the sunset?
Well, yeah, I say this quite often. I've worked with a lot of people in my career, and Darren's one of them. We have pursued the perfect pint together on many occasions. Still looking forward, but yeah, well, you'll hear in this message from Darren. He's been an industry legend in his own respects, and he's seen a lot in his time with RAR now, but also previously with Canada Malting, Great Western Malting. Darren's retirement date is April 1st, 2026. So we thought this was actually the perfect opportunity for Darren to share a few thoughts of certainly his journey, of course, but I think more importantly, in his view, what are the things that the industry should be really thinking about? Our theme for Lisbon is building a resilient malt supply chain for 2035, and I think Darren would have a lot of comments and ideas around what are the things that the industry really needs to get sorted out so that we do have that resilient supply chain in place. And
over to Darren then.
Okay, well, as we start to talk more about the Lisbon conference, pleased to have Darren Smith joining us. So a couple of things. Darren, you know RMI pretty well, so it's not like the RMI conference is anything new to you. But I guess the first question is, from your background and what you do today at RAR-BSG, what is it about the RMI conference that you like, and where you see value in RAR being a sponsor, as you have been a very good sponsor partner for years?
Yeah, Brent, I think RMI really brings together all the leading people in the full value supply chain across barley, malt, and beer. And it's really the one area or place where we can all meet together and really understand the complexities of the industry and really start understanding a bigger piece of the global business.
Yeah, we've started coining the phrase the malt supply chain under one roof, which I think is a really good description, and it's easy for you to meet a lot of people in a somewhat confined space. So I guess it's certainly quite convenient as well.
No question about it.
So you've also agreed to be a speaker, which I very much appreciate. But maybe for those that aren't so aware, what's your current job description with RAR-BSG?
So currently, Brent, I'm the president of RAR-BSG and have been for approximately 2 years now.
Okay. And on April 1st, 2026, what will your job description be?
Well, I plan to be the retired president of RAR-BSG at that time. So looking forward to my last week of work being at RMI Analytics Conference in Lisbon.
Right. So what a kind of a nice way to give you a send-off as well, so people can come and have a beer with you at the pub night. But before that, there's a bit of work. And as I said, appreciate it. I guess the theme that's shaping up for the event is building a resilient malt supply chain for 2035. And as you go towards retirement, I guess the idea that we've talked about is a little bit of a look back as we look forward. And I guess you're going to leave people with some of your thoughts. What's bouncing around your head at the moment?
Yeah, no, as I think about my career, 30 years in the malting industry, really interested to share some of the learnings in the really good times and the challenging times, and the times in between. And I think when you really look at it, this industry is somewhat unique, and there's also things that I think that have happened that will lean into what we should look at in the future of the business. And hopefully I can share some of that trajectory that I've been through, and hopefully people can have some questions about it and hopefully drive towards some good decision making in the future.
Yeah. And likely some things that have to be done differently. And you guys have got some examples that I'm sure you can talk about that I hope in a way the next 10 years will be different in some ways, that the industry is going to transform, and part of that transformation will help make it resilient, but it will come with some hard work. So I guess those are the sort of things you'll share as you kind of start to head towards the exit.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's really an important piece that people reflect on the past as they move into the future.
Absolutely. So, well, with that, I guess people can plan to see you one last time in Lisbon, and we do have the pub night to wrap things up. So I'm sure you'll have lots of people searching you out. So thanks again for this, and look forward to seeing you in Lisbon.
Really appreciate it, Brent. Look forward to seeing everyone.
So, Brent, I was always amazed what a kind of central role Australia plays in barley and barley exports and its sort of position in the world. So when I hear about a ship that contains 95 million pints, I find that fascinating, and who the people behind this are and how they've kind of really made a success in the export world.
Yeah, well, we took the opportunity when we were at the Perth Summit and sat down with Riordan Grain, and in that story, which people will hear directly from Jim and Mark, is their very first vessel of 19,400 tons of malting barley from Australia, where there's millions of tons moving from Australia into markets like China. And this one in particular, I did the maths, as we say, and that one ship would equate to about 95 million half-liter pints of beer in China. Probably something very close to the perfect pint experience was associated. But the story is a good one. Riordans have built a business that's grown to be something quite sizable and really focused on malting barley. So I think taking the time in Perth to hear from these guys is one of these celebrations of the stories across the supply chain. So I hope everyone enjoys the talk we had with the Riordan Grain and learn, and in the process learn a little bit around what's involved to get Australian barley shipped around the world, and cases like this lead to 95 million pints of beer being produced and enjoyed in China. So with that, I guess, let's roll the tape.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, the pursuit of the perfect pint has now got us in Australia, and we're meeting here with two fine gentlemen from Riordan Grain, and they'll tell you a bit more about it. But it's exciting to hear a little bit of what's going on in Australia, and particularly how the supply chain for malt and barley is progressing. So, but maybe first of all, maybe a bit of an introduction.
Yep, sure. So Jim Riordan, owner and managing director of Riordan Grains, based at Geelong. We're a procurement company for procuring grains on the east coast of Australia predominantly. We do some work in South Australia and Western Australia, also in the grains. And the involvement for the perfect pint started back in about 2000 or 1999, when I started procuring malting barley for International Malt Company at Geelong. Knew nothing about malting barley other than I love beer. And now I'm in the pursuit of the perfect pint.
Contributing.
And trying to contribute to the malting barley industry daily.
And Mark,
Yeah. No, thank you, Brett. And Mark Lewis. So I'm from Riordan Grain as well, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer. Been with the business for 14 years, and been in the industry about 25 years. So worked in a couple of different organisations prior to joining Jim and the team. I guess I've been in the barley industry really for the 13 years I've been with Jim, and he really, I guess, introduced me to barley and malting barley in particular. I'd come from more of a wheat trading background with a couple of other international businesses, and joined Jim and started the journey of malt and learning about malt barley and the barley industry.
which ends up in beer, which is a more sexy thing to get associated with.
Well, it's much better than eating a loaf of bread.
Geographically, I guess for anyone that's listening, to put it in context, a lot of the malting operation capacity is in the eastern side of Australia.
Yep. Sure.
And where you're located, Geelong, just outside of Melbourne, you're in what I would say is kind of one of the breadbaskets of barley production in Australia, and it feeds nicely into those malting plants, which feed both domestic production of beer, but also your footprint would spread much more widely. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that reach is.
Sure. I might touch on the domestic, where we collect the barley from, and then let Mark touch on some of the markets that that barley goes through to. So from a domestic viewpoint, we collect barley from central New South Wales, so predominantly from a little place called Lake Cajelico, Bilston, Griffith in the north, about 650 kilometres north of Geelong, to a band across to South Australia and everywhere in between. So it's quite a large procurement area. It has irrigation, and people ask sometimes, why do we collect barley within this area? And the reason we do is because the geographical spread is so great. We have climatic geographical spread, but we also have irrigation on top of dryland farming, which gives us the protection for our customer base when we're trying to buy grain over, for me, the last 30 years. We get a huge variability in rainfall deficits and surpluses within that, and we need those different areas to make sure that we can collect the barley we need to produce the perfect pint.
Yeah, and if you want to see some of that area, you have to definitely pack a lunch.
Yes, that's
So long,
beer or two.
and you'll be in the part of the world that there's not many people out there in some places, but you just got to cover the ground. I guess that's what you guys do every day, is just covering a pretty wide footprint.
Massive area.
Massive. I don't know if people could just, it might be 1,000 kilometers from.
Yep.
We did the tour. We went from Adelaide to
3,000 kilometres in the tour.
Yeah.
So it is a big area to cover. And our grain guys, in excess of 100,000 kilometres a year in vehicles and utes, and talking to farmers. And then we have a fleet of trucks that does millions of kilometres as a fleet, collecting that grain and bringing it to places like Geelong and malt houses, and also, from malt houses to breweries. That Mark touched on, when some of that grain gets to Geelong, where it sort of where it actually heats up.
I think that's good. I think we'll come back to farmers, because I think the farmer piece is quite important. But I guess the market reach for that barley that you connect with ends up in a lot of places.
And I think, just to give you an idea again on the scale or the volumes that we're doing as a business, we handle around 2 million tonne of grain products a year. So that includes barley as a predominant commodity, but also wheat, canola, and other commodities such as pulses, tools, and those sort of things. So we've got a significant volume that we're handling through the business each year, and around 1 million tonne of that product ends up going to export markets through our bulk loading channel. And that is a variety of destinations, pretty much anywhere you can think of around the world that receives barley. So in recent years, we've expanded a lot of our reach into South America, which is a new market for us that developed when we had some challenges going into China with the tariff issue. So that's become a bit of a cornerstone market for our business in particular. Works really well for our supply chain with the size of vessels and the logistics to work into that market in particular. But we're also then still going into China as a destination, and all throughout Southeast Asia, and then into the Middle East with feed barley and products like that. So South America. So yeah, it's very wide ranging.
And on the malt and barley side, it's fair to say that Australia's got a very strong reputation in terms of the quality of malting barley and the performance of it. If you think the performance through malting, performance in brewing. I'm not saying it's an easy sales job, but it does help that you're just coming from such a strong base of quality.
And I think that's something that our business, and as I guess the business sales guy, is really, my job is made relatively easy by the fact that we can manage the quality through our network and through our system. So having our own transport logistics, having our own storages close or at port, and then having a team that's got a really good understanding of quality and how to handle food. It is a food product at the end of the day. It has led to, some really good opportunities for us to explore the whole world, if you like.
Have you ever calculated how many beers you're involved in? I can help you with the calculation.
We should do that, Kel.
That's it would be unbelievable. It's the number. More beer than 3 guys could ever.
As our logo says, no barley, no beer.
Exactly.
It's quite a catchy phrase.
Yeah, I like it. From maybe just on the farmer piece, I guess there's a whole story to this, and we talk a lot about storytelling, and part of the reason we're doing the podcast is I think there's so much more we can do in just sharing that story. So maybe you deal with a lot of farmers. How many farmers would you say is in your network around that Victoria, eastern South Australia. What kind of numbers, maybe just to put it in context?
So Mark might correct me, but I think there's roughly 3,500 farmers in our collection zone that we directly deal with, and that might not be the same farmer every year because of different climatic, different rotational reasons for farmers to grow different crops. But generally, across the network, there's 3,500 farmers, and they can range from 650 kilometres away to, 10 kilometres down the road, and everywhere in between. It's a broad range of farmers, from young to old, and everyone in between. And I think the great thing that we've found about malting barley over the years is that people resonate to it. Because a lot of, people will like a beer, they resonate to the fact that they're actually supplying malting barley to an industry that produces something that they can taste and see and have a connection to. And I think that makes our job a lot easier when we're talking to farmers.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing I have noticed, certainly we've talked about this a lot in the last 10 years in particular, is that the farming generation is getting younger. And, that is probably going against the trend maybe of what you might think. But, certainly in my early days in ag, it was a pretty tough industry to be involved in as a farmer. There wasn't a lot of joy around prices and, it was pretty hard work. But the last 10 years, we've certainly seen, you've seen that corporate kind of agriculture come in, but then you've seen the younger generation actually come back from education and start to see a future in agriculture and farming and growing barley, which has been a really positive trend, I think, for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, it gives us some hope that there's another generation or two that's going to keep this. It's kind of builds on the view, and part of the storytelling is, there's a lot of work that goes into it. Malting barley doesn't come from the telephone. You can't go to the corner store and buy it. There's a lot of, and these farmers are very passionate, and it's multi-generational, as you say, and so on. And I think if we had one, we'll do some of these podcasts in the future with the farmer, because it's such a great story, and they're just so committed to it. And you would deal, 3,500 farmers is enormous, and the amount of effort collectively from that is amazing. And I guess that's where we get back to it's a much untold story, and we'll keep pushing on trying to tell that story with help from people like you and so on. Maybe changing gears a little bit, we talk about the perfect pint. So maybe you could tell us a little bit of, maybe start with the occasion. What, in your mind, what's the occasion to enjoy the perfect pint? And maybe the second part is, what style of beer would that be that would really complement the occasion to get you somewhere closer to the perfect pint?
Mark, yeah. So occasion, I think to me it's around gathering of people, and whether that's family or friends or the connection around your community. And it's about, I think we've lost a little bit of that, particularly through the really challenging COVID years, and the bringing together of people around a drink. And it doesn't have to be 100 drinks. It's that sort of sharing of stories and communicating. I think that to me is the perfect location, often with family, and that's that's a big thing as well. For me, the best in terms of what style of beer. I mean, I really, and I've travelled there a bit. I really like Japanese beers. I really like clean, crisp style beers that they seem to me have really perfected the creation of a good beer, and they're true to their style, and they don't typically vary off too much around going into too sort of fruity avenues. But they certainly know how to make it really.
You know what to expect, and they deliver on.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you, Jim?
Yeah, I was similar. I mean, I think absolutely the family gathering is just such a friendly environment to enjoy beer. But over and above that, I remember as kids, my father would have a beer with his mates on a Friday night after work. And I think we've lost a bit of that sometimes, where the pub was go and have a chat to your mates, and we talk about mates, or people not doing as well as what, mental health and these sorts of things. And I think we lost a bit of that maybe Friday night plot at the pub, and just chatting amongst ourselves as a group of people from when you might knock off at 6 o'clock and from 6 till 7 o'clock have 2 beers or 3 and then head home. And I think we've lost a bit of that, I feel.
Certainly
Yeah.
lost some of that since the pandemic. Like we
Yeah.
hear that from a lot of people, the post-pandemic, that isolationist sort of thing is
Correct.
a concern that people just aren't getting together at the same level.
And I know with our mates we're talking about it, and we've got to make an effort to go to the pub on a Friday night after work on the way home and just call in and have 1 or 2 pots and reinvigorate that. So I think there's a bit of that in the beer supply chain business. And I don't know if that's a worldwide trend or not, but certainly it's from an individual's point of view, that's the beer I like. Is that, and the other beer I like is if you've done a big day's work and you stand around with family or mates, or you've had a great day working somewhere and you have a few beers that evening, it's actually really enjoyable. And
I remember that beer that we had, Jim, after we loaded that first bulk vessel
yes,
in Geelong, and we watched it leave the berth, and you had a nesty at the back of the car and
watch it drive past.
it gave us a toot as it headed past. Yeah, that was very good beer.
That's an occasion. That's a big occasion. And we'll do the calculation on how many beers was in
We
it.
slept pretty well.
Yeah.
We only had 2 beers and we slept.
There's a bit of work associated. Oh, we're in Perth, taking the opportunity with you guys to catch up. So I think what we'll do is, if you don't mind, maybe we'll go out and we'll make a stab at finding the perfect pint and see. But thanks for both of you to spend some time. You're just part of the storytelling, so we appreciate you taking a few moments. So
No problem.
I think we'll say cheers to the perfect pint and stay tuned.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Brent, you and I often chat about malt and barley and related things. So if people have any specific questions to ask you, can they reach out and we can talk about that on the next podcast?
Sure. Well, by all means, the people can reach out to us through the website and contact us. We have the insights we're collecting on a regular basis and publishing. So if there's questions about the insights, or of course, we've got a lot of effort going on for the Lisbon conference. So if there's any questions related to that, by all means, people can reach out. We're doing a lot of work on the agenda and the theme of resiliency going forwards. We got a really good speaker lineup on the agenda. So in the coming episodes, we'll keep profiling some of those speakers. We'll keep getting these testimonials from our valued sponsors, and we'll keep pursuing the perfect pint. It's hard work in some respects, but we're kind of up for the task. So I hope everyone else is. So if you enjoy what we're sharing, also tell your friends and spread the word on whether it's watching it on YouTube. It's also on Spotify, and you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts. So there's lots of opportunities for people to get access to the insights and the various stories we're sharing. So just spread the word, I guess, would be my only request.
Yeah, sounds good. And looking forward to episode 4. Cheers.
Cheers.